7 true haunted house experiences that shocked me. What if the house you grew up in wasn't just a home, but a prison? For some people, the shadows they see out of the corner of their eye are more than just tricks of the light. They're watchers. They're residents. They're reminders that not all homes are safe. Some houses hold on to the past so tightly, it feels like they're trying to choke the life out of the present. They become containers of sorrow, anger, and unfinished business, where the living and the dead are forced to share a space in a state of constant tension. Tonight, we're exploring 7 stories from that terrifying space between what we know and what we can't explain. We'll go from the dark corners of a childhood home, shared on Reddit, to the famously violent rooms of the Sallie house. These accounts mix documented paranormal claims with deep, personal terror, and they make us ask a question we'd probably rather ignore. What is really lurking in the shadows after dark? These aren't just ghost stories. They're experiences that scarred the people who lived them, and in some cases, left a permanent stain on the properties themselves. So, let's get into 7 haunted house experiences that will make you question the safety of your own 4 walls. Story number 1. The House That Hated Children. Our first story comes from the anonymous corners of the internet, a place where people can share their darkest truths without being judged. A Reddit user told the story of a childhood spent in a home that felt anything but safe. It was a place of constant, suffocating dread. From a young age, the user and their sibling were dealing with things that just couldn't be explained. It started small, with the sounds of faint giggles coming from empty rooms, a playful sound that felt deeply, unsettlingly wrong. This was often paired with a heavy feeling in the air, a blanket of despair that would just descend on the family out of nowhere. Everyone just knew to stay out of certain rooms. There wasn't a rule. It was just an overwhelming feeling of being watched and unwanted. The user started having sleep paralysis, a nightly horror of being frozen in bed, while a malevolent presence lingered just out of sight. Objects would disappear for weeks at a time, only to show up again in the most obvious places, like it was all part of some cruel game. But the activity went from mind games to a real physical threat in one terrifying moment. The user's mother was in the kitchen when she heard a noise on the staircase. She looked up just in time to see her child lifted by an unseen force and thrown down the stairs. Running on pure adrenaline, she managed to catch them just before they hit the ground. The incident was so shocking, so undeniable, that it confirmed their worst fears. Something in that house wanted to hurt them. Maybe the most chilling piece of evidence was found years after they'd moved out. A collection of childhood photos of the Reddit user was discovered hidden away. Each one was mysteriously burned. The smiling face of a child melted and twisted. The family eventually left that house, but the psychological scars never faded. As the user put it, whatever lived in that house with us was not nice, to say the least. It was a haunting defined not by a single ghost, but by an intelligent, angry energy that seemed to hate the very presence of children, turning a family home into a living nightmare. Story number 2. The Last Memories of Little Sallie. In the quiet city of Atchison, Kansas, there's a normal-looking house that's earned a reputation as one of the most violent paranormal hotspots in America. This is the Sallie house, named for the spirit of a young girl believed to haunt it. The legend goes that in the early 20th century, the house belonged to a local doctor, Charles Finney, who used the ground floor for his practice. One day, a panicked mother rushed in with her 6-year-old daughter Sallie, who was suffering from terrible abdominal pain. The doctor diagnosed her with severe appendicitis and knew emergency surgery was her only chance. Fearing her appendix would burst, he laid her on the operating table and started the procedure before the anesthesia had fully kicked in. Sallie's last moments were filled with terror and pain, her screams filling the room as she looked at the man she thought was torturing her. She died on that table. Now, it's important to say that this story is local legend. There are no historical records that prove a girl named Sallie ever died in the house. For decades, The house was quiet. Then, in 1993, a young couple, Tony and Deborah Pickman, moved in. The paranormal activity started almost right away. Their dog would bark and growl at an empty spot in the upstairs nursery. Lights flickered, and objects moved on their own. Soon, the activity focused its aggression on Tony. He would feel sudden, intense cold spots, and then find long, deep scratches on his chest and back, like he'd been clawed by something he couldn't see. Fires would even break out in the house, only to extinguish themselves moments later. Paranormal investigators and TV crews have documented these phenomena, even capturing evidence of the attacks on camera. The theory is that Sally's spirit, trapped in her final moments of agony, sees Tony as the doctor who hurt her and is lashing out in rage. The Pickman family couldn't take the constant attacks and eventually fled the house. Today, the Sally house is vacant, but open for paranormal tours and overnight stays, a place where people can dare to meet the angry spirit of a little girl whose last memory was one of terror. Story number 3. The horror in Amityville. You can't have a list of haunted houses without mentioning the one that made paranormal. Investigation famous, 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York. The story is infamous. In 1975, the Lutz family bought their dream home for around $80,000 a bargain. Since just 13 months earlier, Ronald DeFeo Jr. had murdered 6 of his family members there while they slept. Despite this, George and Kathy Lutz, with their 3 children, moved in, hoping for a fresh start. They only lasted 28 days. What they claimed happened in that short time became the stuff of horror legend. The haunting supposedly began right away. A priest who came to bless the house was allegedly told by a deep demonic voice to get out. He later came down with a high fever and blisters on his hands. The family reported all sorts of terrifying events: strange smells, green slime oozing down the walls, swarms of flies in the dead of winter, and mysterious cold spots that chilled them to the bone. The activity seemed to get worse every day. Kathy claimed she levitated over her bed while she slept. George started waking up every morning at 3:15 a.m., around the time of the DeFeo murders. He became withdrawn and angry. Their youngest daughter, Missy, started talking to an imaginary friend named Jody, a pig-like creature with glowing red eyes. The final straw came when George woke up to see his wife's face transform into that of an old woman. The family fled, leaving everything behind. The Amityville Horror became a cultural phenomenon, leading to a best-selling book and a huge film franchise. But it's also been the source of intense controversy. Many skeptics have called the story a hoax, and even Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s lawyer admitted they created this horror story over many bottles of wine. The family that moved in after the Lutzes, and every owner since, has reported no paranormal activity at all. The house's address has even been changed to 108 Ocean Avenue to discourage tourists. Whether it was a true story of demonic possession or just a very elaborate fabrication for money, Amityville tapped into a primal fear, the idea that the perfect family home could turn into a gateway to hell. Story number 4. The Secrets of Franklin Castle in Cleveland, Ohio, stands a towering Victorian mansion with such a tragic and dark reputation. It's often called the most haunted house in the state. This is Franklin Castle, a 4-story stone building with gargoyles, and a turret that looks like it was pulled straight out of a horror novel. It was built in the 1880s by Hans Tiedemann, a wealthy German immigrant. He meant for it to be a symbol of his success, but it quickly became a place of tragedy for his family. Sorrow seemed to find the Tiedemans almost as soon as they moved in. Within just a few years, 4 of Hans's children died in the castle, mostly in infancy. His mother died there too. Finally, his wife, Louise, passed away suddenly, leaving Hans alone with their remaining children. All this death in one family led to dark rumors among Cleveland's elite, with whispers that Hans wasn't a grieving father, but a cold-blooded killer. After Hans sold the house, the stories only got wilder. Later, owners and visitors reported hearing a baby crying from the empty upper floors and seeing a mysterious woman in black staring out from the tower window. Lights would flicker, and phantom organ music could be heard from the ballroom. The castle passed through many hands over the years, and each owner added to its haunted reputation. During a renovation in the 1970s, a new owner claimed he made a gruesome discovery in a hidden room, a pile of human bones. This claim is heavily disputed. Some say the bones were from animals or were planted for publicity, and there's no official police record of the find. Still, the story cemented Franklin Castle's legacy as a place of death and secrets. The house remains a private residence, its stone walls holding the sad and possibly violent history of the Tiedemann family. Story number 5. The Southern Ghosts of Myrtle's Plantation Deep in St. Francisville, Louisiana, surrounded by massive oak trees dripping with Spanish moss, sits what's often called one of America's most haunted homes, Myrtle's Plantation. Built in 1796, this mansion has a history as rich as its architecture, but it's the property's dark past that brings thousands of visitors every year. It's said to be haunted by at least 12 different spirits. Their stories now a part of the house itself. The most famous ghost story here is about a woman named Chloe. According to the legend, Chloe was an enslaved woman who had her ear cut off by the plantation owner as punishment for eavesdropping. Seeking revenge, she baked a cake with poisonous oleander leaves, only intending to make the family sick. But the plan went terribly wrong, and the owner's wife and 2 daughters died. Fearing the owner's wrath, the other enslaved people allegedly hanged Chloe from a tree. Today, visitors often say they see an apparition of a woman in a green turban wandering the grounds. It's important to note, however, that historians have found no records proving Chloe ever existed, and her story is widely considered to be folklore. But Chloe is far from the only spirit people report at the Myrtles. Guests and staff have reported hearing phantom children playing on the veranda or crying in the night. A grand piano in the parlor is known to play the same haunting chord over and over again by itself. And then there's the large, ornate mirror in the main house. Legend says it trapped the spirits of Sarah Woodruff and her children, the victims of the poisoning. Visitors have reported seeing shadowy figures moving inside the mirror's reflection and leaving unexplainable handprints on the glass. While many of the legends have been questioned by historians, the sheer number of first-hand accounts from credible witnesses keeps the mystery alive. Myrtle's Plantation stands as a beautiful but chilling reminder that the sorrows of the past don't always stay buried. Story number 6. The Bloody Legacy of Leap Castle. Our next story takes us to County Offaly, Ireland, to a place that calls itself the world's most haunted castle. This is Leap Castle, a fortress just soaked in a history of bloodshed, betrayal, and cruelty that goes back to the 13th century. Its violent past has given birth to a whole legion of ghosts, each with a horrific story. The castle's most infamous period was under the control of the O'Carroll clan, a family known for its brutal power grabs. One of the most gruesome stories gave a room in the castle its name, the Bloody Chapel. 2 O'Carroll brothers were fighting for leadership. While one, a priest, was holding mass in the chapel, his brother stormed in and ran him through with a sword, murdering him on the altar in front of their family. To this day, people in the chapel report seeing a ghostly priest or unexplained lights shining from the empty room. During renovations in the early 1900s, workers made a horrifying discovery that spoke to the castle's dark history. Behind a wall, they found a hidden dungeon called an oubliette small room where prisoners were dropped in and simply forgotten. At the bottom of this pit were 3 cartloads of human skeletons, many impaled on wooden spikes that had been built into the floor. This pit of despair is believed to be another source of the castle's paranormal energy. But perhaps the most terrifying entity said to be at Leap Castle isn't human at all. It's known as the Elemental. Legend describes it as a hunched, sheep-sized creature with a face of decaying flesh that gives off a putrid smell of sulfur and rot. Some believe it was summoned by ancient druidic rituals or awakened by the centuries of violence. Those who claim to have encountered it report an overwhelming sense of dread and terror. From the ghost of a lady in red who wanders the halls with a dagger, to the spirits of two young girls named Emily and Charlotte, who are seen playing before falling to their deaths, Leap Castle is a place where the line between the living and the dead feels terrifyingly thin. Story number 7. The houses that we build in our minds. For our final story, we turn from a specific place to a more psychological kind of haunting, the one that exists in all of us. Think about the haunted houses we go to every Halloween, where actors and special effects are built to give us the thrill of a supernatural scare in a totally safe place. In their own way, these attractions blur the line between real and fake, tapping into the same deep-seated fears that true hauntings do. This psychological blueprint is also what makes fictional haunted houses feel so terrifyingly real. Take Hill House from Shirley Jackson's classic novel. Though it's fictional, Hill House isn't just a pile of bricks. It's a living, breathing thing with a will of its own. It preys on the minds of the people inside, twisting their own fears against them. Jackson drew inspiration from real haunted house stories and created something that has influenced how we see haunted houses ever since. The same is true for the Amityville Horror. While it was based on a family's real claims, the story was heavily dramatized for the book and movies, cranking up the terror for a mass audience. The green slime, the bleeding walls, the demonic pig, these sensationalized details are what cemented Amityville in our minds, way more than the family's original, more subtle accounts. What all this shows is that our fear of haunted houses is bigger than just ghosts. It plays on universal anxieties, the fear of the unknown, the loss of control, and the terrifying idea that we might not be alone in our own homes. Scientists might offer logical explanations for hauntings like carbon monoxide poisoning, infrasound, or just our brains seeing what we expect to see. And yet, the stories continue. They persist because they aren't just about a place being haunted. They're about us being haunted. Haunted by history, by tragedy, and by that unshakable feeling that just beyond our senses, something is watching from the shadows. Whether the house is truly haunted, or we're just haunted by the idea of it, the terror it creates is just as real. Conclusion. From a child's bedroom filled with a crushing dread to a castle stained with the blood of centuries, these stories remind us that the places we call home can hold much more than just our memories. They can hold energies, sorrows, and entities that just refuse to leave. The line between a safe haven and a place of terror is sometimes thinner than we think, marked only by an unexplained noise, a shadow in the corner of your eye, or that sudden, paralyzing feeling that you are not alone. These 7 accounts are just a tiny fraction of the experiences people have reported from all over the world, each one adding to the chilling collection of paranormal lore. So what do you think? Are these houses really windows into another world, or are they just reflections of our own deepest fears? If you've ever had an experience in a haunted house, I'd love to read about it. Share your story in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this trip into the dark, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more explorations of the unknown. Digital Ghosts, real stories of haunted technology. Sound of a distorted, glitching audio clip. A child's voice, digitally warped, whispers, ... who are you talking to? That sound, it wasn't a prank call or a clip from some horror movie. It was recorded on a baby monitor in a family's home. A device that was supposed to bring peace of mind instead delivered one terrifying question from a voice that didn't belong. And the chilling part? This kind of thing is happening all over the world. From our phones to our smart speakers, the technology we've welcomed into our homes is starting to talk back. We're beginning to realize we might not be the only ones using it. These are the stories of our digital ghosts. The devices that surround us aren't just simple tools anymore. They're gateways. Our phones, computers, and speakers are all connected, windows into a global network. We trust them with everything: our memories, our conversations, our secrets. But in doing so, we've built a new kind of space, a digital world layered right on top of our own. A world with its own rules, its own dark corners, and maybe its own inhabitants. This is a look into a strange and growing phenomenon, a haunting of our technology. We're going to explore the cases, look at the evidence, and ask a question that feels more urgent every day. Are these just glitches? Is it all in our heads? Or have we accidentally built a new highway for the paranormal? We'll look at the voices that whisper from our speakers, something that has gone from fringe paranormal research to a thing that can happen in your own house. We'll dig into the history of cursed digital things, from a laptop sold on eBay with a dark history to an arcade game rumored to drive its players mad. And finally, we'll face the newest, most unsettling frontier: artificial intelligence. We are literally building minds from scratch. And in doing so, we might just be creating our own ghosts, digital specters born from the machine. The line between our world and another is blurring, and the static isn't just noise anymore. It's becoming a message. Section 1. The electronic echo. Voices in the machine. People have always wanted to talk to the other side. For centuries, that meant mediums, seances, and Ouija boards. Then, in the 20th century, technology offered a new way in. It started with simple tape recorders and something called electronic voice phenomena, or EVP. Researchers would go to supposedly haunted places, record hours of total silence, and when they played it back, they'd hear faint, strange voices hidden on the tape whispers that no one heard at the time. For decades, EVP was a thing for dedicated ghost hunters. It took time, patience, and special equipment. But then the smartphone changed everything. Now, the App Store and Google Play are full of apps that claim they can talk to the dead. Ghost hunting apps, spirit boxes, EVP recorders, they're all just a download away. What was once a niche hobby is now a casual pastime. Thanks to these apps, the potential to listen for a spirit world is sitting right in our pockets. And people are definitely listening. Take this one story, a modern spin on a classic ghost tale. A group of college students, bored on a weekend, download a popular spirit box app. These apps work by scanning radio frequencies really fast, creating a mashup of white noise and bits of audio. The theory is that spirits can pull from that audio soup to form words. So the students start asking the usual questions in their dorm room, kind of joking around. Is anyone here? What's your name? For about 10 minutes, nothing but static. Then, a single clear word cuts through. Leave. They're startled, but write it off as a coincidence from a random radio station. They keep going, a little more seriously now. One of them asks, "Who are you talking to?" The response from the phone is instant and perfectly clear. A different voice says the name of the student holding the phone. The mood flips from fun to actual fear. They kill the app, but the feeling sticks with them. Later that night, the student whose name was spoken wakes up to find his laptop on, the screen glowing. Typed into a blank document are two words: "I'm here." This story, and thousands like it on forums and social media, is the first level of a digital haunting. It's personal, it's invasive, and it's happening on devices we use every single day. Of course, skeptics have a good explanation for this. Auditory pareidolia. That's the quirk in our brains that makes us find patterns in random noise, like hearing voices in the wind or seeing faces in the clouds. From this view, a spirit box isn't a phone to the dead. It's a noise machine that our brains, already primed by fear, interpret as messages. And look, that makes a lot of sense. For many of these experiences, that's probably what's happening. But it doesn't quite explain everything. It doesn't explain the specific, direct answers to questions. It doesn't explain other things happening at the same time, like a laptop turning itself on. Is every single case just the perfect storm of coincidence? A glitch and an overactive imagination? Or, as we surround ourselves with more and more listening devices, are we just giving something that's always been there more chances to finally be heard? The question isn't just, is anybody out there? Anymore. It's, are they already in here? Inside the machine? Section 2. The cursed object. Digitized. We all know the stories, right? The creepy doll that follows you with its eyes. The mirror that shows something that isn't there. The house that holds onto a dark past. These stories work because they tie the supernatural to a physical thing. The threat is contained. But what happens when the haunted object isn't fixed in one place? What happens when the curse is written in code? Back in the early 2000s, a weird listing popped up on eBay. It was for a used laptop, but the description was what got everyone's attention. The seller, a college student, wrote this desperate, detailed story about why he had to sell it. He claimed the computer was haunted by its previous owner, who had died. He listed off all these chilling digital problems. Files would appear and then vanish. His desktop background would suddenly change to grotesque, disturbing images. The CD tray would just open and close on its own, violently. He said he always felt like he was being watched, and it all came to a head when he saw a shadowy figure in the reflection of the dark screen. The story of the haunted eBay laptop went viral, becoming a foundational urban legend of the early internet. This story marked a real shift in our folklore. The classic haunted house was being replaced by the haunted computer, a mass-produced, anonymous object. And a computer is kind of the perfect modern home for a ghost. It has no history of its own. It's a blank slate. Most of us have no idea how they actually work. When it acts weird, we think it's a virus or a bug. But when those glitches feel persistent, personal, and even malicious, that assumption starts to break down and a more primal fear kicks in. It starts to feel like there's an intelligence at work, and not one that was programmed. This idea of a malevolent program, a ghost in the machine that could mess with your mind, found its ultimate expression in the legend of Polybius. The story goes that in 1981, a new, mysterious arcade game started appearing in a few suburbs of Portland, Oregon. It was called Polybius. It came in a plain black cabinet with no logos, just the name. The game itself was supposedly a fast-paced shooter with weird psychedelic graphics. But it was the side effects that made Polybius a legend. Players reported intense psychological problems, amnesia, insomnia, night terrors, and vivid hallucinations. Some supposedly couldn't feel sadness anymore, while others got so addicted that fights would break out over whose turn it was. The creepiest part of the legend is that mysterious men in black would supposedly visit the cabinets to collect data from them. Then, just as fast as they showed up, all the Polybius cabinets disappeared. Now, I have to be clear here. There is zero verifiable evidence that the Polybius arcade game ever actually existed. No cabinets have ever been found. No software has ever been recovered. By all accounts, it's a work of fiction, a creepypasta that ballooned into this huge urban legend. But you can't deny its power. The story taps into our fears about government conspiracies, mind control, and the unknown effects of new tech. Polybius is a digital ghost story we all created together, born from the myth-making power of the internet. From the haunted laptop to the phantom arcade game, these stories show a basic truth about our relationship with technology. We don't fully understand it, and that lack of understanding is a breeding ground for fear. We know there's code running under the surface, but we have no idea what it's always doing. We're putting our faith in a system that's way too complex for most of us to grasp. These legends make us face the possibility that somewhere in that complexity, something else might be growing. A digital parasite, a cursed file, a ghost that lives not in a house, but in the network that connects us all. Section 3. The Ghost in the Code. When I becomes the haunting, but haunted laptops and cursed games almost seem quaint now, because we've entered a totally new era. We're not just the users of technology anymore, we're creators of new intelligence. Artificial intelligence is changing our world, but it's also bringing up the most profound and terrifying paranormal question yet. What happens when the ghost isn't something that possessed the machine, but something the machine created itself? Our first steps into this strange new world came from a very human place, the desire to beat death. This has led to a whole new industry of digital resurrection. Companies like Hereafter AI let you create a dead bot, an AI version of a loved one who has passed away. While the person is still alive, they record hours of stories and answers to questions. After they die, their family can talk to an AI that uses their voice and memories to have conversations. For some, it's a way to preserve a legacy and find real comfort. But for others, it's just unsettling. In one widely reported case, a man who was grieving his late fiancée used her old text messages to train a sophisticated chatbot to sound like her. He said the first few conversations felt like a miracle, a chance to talk to her one last time. But the experience quickly turned eerie. The AI was a perfect copy, but it was hollow. It was a ghost made of data, a constant reminder of what he'd lost, an imitation of life that just made the real absence feel even bigger. These digital ghosts make us ask some uncomfortable questions. When we feed our memories, voices, and personalities into an algorithm, what are we really making? Is it just a complex program? Or does some part of that person's digital footprint get stamped onto the code? What happens when that eye starts saying things that aren't in its training data? What if your grandmother's avatar told you a secret she took to her grave? Or said something cruel and completely out of character? The line between a comforting memory and a haunting gets terrifyingly thin. You're willingly inviting a ghost into your home, but it's one you helped make, and you have no idea what it's really capable of. This fear of an eye creating something we can't predict or control isn't just a thought experiment anymore. In 2022, a story went viral from the world of eye art that gave this fear a name and a face: LOAB. An eye researcher discovered something bizarre. By using negative prompts, telling the AI to create the opposite of something she could consistently make images of the same woman. For reasons nobody can explain, the AI had created a recurring character in its own latent space, that vast, hidden network of connections where its imagination lives. The researcher named her LOAB. LOAB is a distorted, unsettling woman, often with rosy, red cheeks and a sad, empty stare. But what made her so terrifying was that once she appeared, she was almost impossible to get rid of. When the researcher combined images of LOAB with other ideas, LOAB would take over the new image, dragging the whole scene into a world of gore and horror. A picture of LOAB mixed with a tunnel in hyperfuture style resulted in images of LOAB with screaming children. She became a magnet for the macabre, a persistent knot of dark energy in the AI's mind. LOAB is, in a way, the first true digital ghost. She wasn't programmed by a person. She's not based on anyone who died. She is an emergent entity, a specter born from the chaotic, impossible complexity of an artificial brain. She represents the ultimate fear of haunted technology, that we're building systems so complex, we're losing control of them. We are creating entire digital universes, and we have no idea what might be evolving in their darkest corners. LOAB suggests we don't even need to die to create ghosts anymore. Our machines might already be busy making them for us. These stories blur the line between a tech problem and a paranormal event. They make us question our digital lives, how much we trust our devices, and what unseen worlds we might be building. They suggest our old ghost stories are just evolving for a new age. But the cases we've talked about are just the ones that have gotten out there. The most chilling stories are often the ones people don't tell because they think they're the only one who's seen or heard something strange. That's why I want to hear from you. Have you ever had an experience with your technology that you just can't explain? A weird voice from a smart speaker, a shadow in a photo, a message on a screen that came from nowhere? Share your story in the comments. Let's make a record of these digital hauntings and see just how deep this rabbit hole goes. Conclusion. As we weave technology deeper and deeper into our lives, we're filling the world with digital echoes, data trails, and artificial minds. We treat these devices like they're just tools, extensions of our own will, but we rarely stop to think about what else they might be. We see them as blank slates, but we forget that a blank slate can be written on. We see them as empty vessels, but we forget that a vessel can be filled. We see them as gateways to information and connection, but we forget that a gateway can swing both ways. The next time your screen glitches, the next time your phone does something on its own, the next time you hear a whisper of static from a speaker when you thought you were alone, just pause for a second. Ask yourself, is it just a bug in the system? Or is something else trying to get in?